I want to show you my SHBG of 69.5. It's still above the reference range, and I'll talk about what I'm doing to work on that. But in August, it was 97.5. So what did I do in between now and August? I did a few things. I started including more boron in my diet. Things like dates, raisins, and plums have boron. There's plenty of boron in avocados. You can get a magnesium supplement that has boron if you want to do it, or you can take a boron supplement. I prefer not to use supplements if I can avoid them. I don't think the boron is the reason the SHBG went down, and I'll tell you why. When I was strictly carnivore, I also took a boron supplement and saw the SHBG go down for a few weeks, but then it bumped back up while I was continuing to take the boron. That's a pattern that I've consistently seen with sex hormone binding globulin and boron. And so much so that many people recommend cycling boron to decrease SHBG. Now, if SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, goes down and then comes back up and you're still taking boron, this doesn't really indicate to me that it's a boron deficiency. I think a lot of strict carnivores may have a boron deficiency. There's not a lot of boron in meat, though there is boron in bones. And there's interesting articles talking about those who eat more boron in their foods have stronger bones and less incidence of osteoarthritis, which is not necessarily bone strength, but it does have to do with bones because it's the cartilage on the bones, et cetera. So boron is important in the human diet. I think mostly we get it from plant foods, specifically fruit like avocado, dates, raisins, plums, that kind of thing. And other fruit have boron as well. I think even papaya, pineapple, all these have a little bit of boron. So if you're eating an animal-based diet, including fruit in your diet, you're not going to be deficient in boron, I don't think. And I don't think taking boron is necessary. So I did increase raisins and dates and plums for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And then I stopped thinking, I'm pretty sure I'm getting enough boron in my papaya, pineapple, mango, et cetera. So I stopped those things. And for the majority of the time since the last blood draw in August, I've actually been doing phlebotomy. So I've been going to a practitioner who will just take my blood and then we just give it to plants or throw it out. So essentially bleeding out of my vein. And I'm doing about 200 cc's of blood every 3 to 4 weeks. Or if I can do it more regularly, I would probably aim for 50 to 60 cc's per week. Now, I don't have hemochromatosis, but if you look at my blood work, and I'll go back to that in a moment, my ferritin was creeping up, my iron saturation was creeping up, and my transferrin saturation was creeping up. And hat tip to Elliot Overton, who made a comment on one of my YouTube videos and said, you should think about iron overload. This is something where I've learned in the past few months, and it's why I wanted to share this with you guys. I never really thought that a ferritin of 250 or 300 was problematic for most humans, but I'm having to question that in my own mind now. And I think that if I continue doing phlebotomy and my SHBG continues to come down as I get rid of excess iron, then this may lend support for the hypothesis. If that doesn't happen, maybe these aren't connected at all. So I'll keep you guys posted. But in the short term, I have probably done phlebotomy 4 times. My ferritin has come down, my SHBG has come down, my transferrin sat has come down. So all of those have gone in the same direction. Again, I stopped eating boron-rich foods like dates, raisins, and plums months ago. So I don't think it's related to that. I don't take any boron supplements. Like I said, I think I'm getting plenty of boron in my other fruits that I eat. So I think the majority of this may be related to iron, quote, overload. But I don't think we know what a healthy level of ferritin is for humans, ferritin being storage iron. The repeat community would say go lower because excess iron is a problem. So I'm thinking, okay, let's try it. Within Western medicine, most doctors would look at my labs. This doesn't say much. We know what we think of Western medicine and say that ferritin is fine. I don't have hemochromatosis, and I'm pretty confident of that based on my genetics. And I will show you guys my genetics in a moment. I've done 23andMe, which isn't perfect, but it's pretty accurate when it comes to hemochromatosis genetics. And then you can put the 23andMe genetics data into a program called Prometheus. You can just put the raw data in there and see all of your genetics. Not super useful for a ton of things, but a few things I think it's interesting for, and I'll get into that as an aside in this podcast in a moment. So I want to show you my iron labs, and then we'll get into my genetics. But I don't have hemochromatosis. I do eat a lot of red meat and organs. I'll eat liver and heart basically every day, ground beef every day. So my body's pretty good at absorbing iron and is getting a lot of iron in my foods. Having said this, I'm not going to stop eating those foods because I believe those foods are the most nutrient dense and least toxic sources of animal protein we can get. Most chickens are fed grains. Most chickens are fed meal that has seed oils, which will increase linoleic acid in their fat. And I'm not a huge fan of any of that. So I don't really want to go to eating chicken, fish. These are animal-based foods, quote unquote, but they're just more polluted than grass-fed ground beef, especially if you're getting it from a good producer. Here in Costa Rica, I know the guy that raises the cows that I eat. There's no glyphosate sprayed on the property. There's no pesticides. And the meat tastes really good. Know where your meat is coming from. So I think that red meat is still the best source. And the organs from cows are probably still the best source. Now, if you can get bison or elk or deer, great. Ruminants are fantastic. Lamb is fantastic. All those are great in my opinion, but I think ruminants are the best source of animal foods for humans just because they are eating a diet that is most close to their ancestral true diet. Cows and ruminants are supposed to eat grass. And if you grass feed and grass finish them, that's what they do. There aren't many chickens on the planet eating a truly chicken ancestral diet. There aren't many pigs on the planet eating a truly pig ancestral diet. If you hunt a wild chicken or a wild turkey, sure. If you hunt a wild boar, yeah, great. But what we know is that wild chickens, wild turkeys, wild pigs have much lower amounts of linoleic acid in their fat than do domesticated animals because there's linoleic acid in the feed of these animals. So I don't want to eat chicken or pork or turkey necessarily for the majority of my meats, and fish has heavy metals, perfluoroalkylated substances, microplastics. I've talked about it on a previous podcast. If you choose to make those a part of your diet, great. I just try to do what's ideal in my mind, and I don't want to make it unreachable for people. If you're eating those foods, chicken, fish, pork, rather than plant-based burgers, kudos to you, way better. But I'm trying to understand what's optimal and give a blueprint in any way that I can for you all with that. So on to my iron labs. You can see here my ferritin is 252, so it's still on the high end, down from 332 in August. Again, I've done multiple phlebotomies. And let's go to the other iron labs. Again, I will go through every single thing on this blood work. The total iron binding capacity is up. The iron is down, and the iron saturation is down from 42 to 31. So all of that moved in the right direction. I would like to get my ferritin under 150, perhaps even under 100. And that will probably be where I change the frequency of phlebotomy and look to see what happens with the sex hormone binding globulin. So my learning from all this is the possibility that even those of us without hemochromatosis genes may benefit from being aware of our iron levels, especially when it comes to things like hormones or overall health. So I'll keep you guys posted on that.